early. Well,
They understand. The other is brother will, and the young one, the son, is what? It will.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Very briefly, there's a process of preparing estimates for expenditure and incomes for every year. So since 2016 to date, we have plans for how much we will spend every year, beginning January to December, and how much we anticipate to receive as revenue. So this year, 2019, there is a budget. If you want to know the details of the budget, just contact the society steward. We have also promoted a system of requesting for funds. There's a funds request form that every organization that needs to access funds for a particular purpose will apply through the coordinating office that they belong to, and then the coordinating office will recommend it for payment to the superintendent minister. So there's a system. We can actually send you soft copies of the budget for 2019 so you can see what the items are, what the amounts are for salaries, for all the activities that we carry out here. So there is a budget for 2019. Contact the society steward to have a look at a copy of it. If you need a soft copy of it also, we can make it available so that you go with the request for funding from a knowledge point of view, so you know what you are asking for.
Thank you. But that also depends on anticipated income. So if the income is not ready, then they want to reduce the request. And I said if it is in good time, then the organization would, Singing Band would not ask, Suma would not ask, Men's Fellowship would not ask. So, and the girls has just been formed. The other organization, like the Youth Ministries Division, need to sit down, study, and go by the processes. And we shouldn't have problems, I assure you. But
Uncle Fred wants to say something. Yes.
I just wanted to mention a few things because I think there's a misconception that because a budget has been allocated, it means the money is available for you to spend. Right? Budget is an estimate, is a plan for the year. So both the income and the expenditure are estimates and they are plans. So if your income is reduced, it means the money that you anticipated you were going to spend might not be there. So if you don't put in your request early enough, then the money might not be available. But there were a couple of other things that was also mentioned. And I remember years ago, I had this conversation with my dad about why the youth is leaving the Methodist Church. I think it is important that whatever solutions that the church creates is research-based, research from the youth, not research from adults. I think we are in danger of adults determining why the youth are leaving the church, when we've got plenty of the youth who are here with us and plenty that have also left that we can do a research based on, so that the solutions we create are informed decisions. Otherwise, we'll be doing a lot of things and it might not lead anywhere. Because the first thing I remember my dad saying was that it is because the other churches dance. Methodists have been dancing and people are still living. There must be a reason other than just the dance like it was mentioned.
Just to add a little bit to it, the living, let me pick it from the living. Young people and the way they catch up things and grow in their confidence and courage with it. And when I got into the Methodist Church, the first thing I wondered about was the fact that you will have a book for liturgy. It shocked me as a young person, where I was coming from, the energy, the strength, and that you are doing it as a young person is the fact that you have come to know it. And when a young person comes to know the thing for themselves, and it is with them, they cherish it than when it is there to go and go through it. as Nana is mentioning, you end up explaining why we sing Tidion, why we do all things. But when in church, for a young person, when the Spirit carries you and you do it, most preferably off head, it's more desirable than when it is in lines, in order like that. It takes away the energy as a young person, it takes away the strength. And so I was in church and somebody was reading prayers from a book, somebody was reading response, and just a short lines I've been looking to where I was coming from. You are there to lead liturgy, and when you stand there, because you have been taught and you learn it behind the scene, you move about and everything still fall in place. And so the dynamism you can add to it easily flows with you. But as you grow in that over time, you settle as an adult. And so unfortunately, it seems like the church, where the liturgy, there is a book prepared from the old or the tradition point of view, we keep it like that, and whether you are an expert or not, the book is still there for you, you read the prayer from it. But for some time now, we've been told that those prayers in the book are just a guideline. You should know the key things that are in the summary prayers for the conclusion of prayer time, and you are able to relate it like that, so that you are not stuck to the book. But still, people who are old feel like, why is that the young person just left the book and went away? But the church is promoting that those things are guidelines. And the data that was mentioned by Nana, let me quickly touch on that the structures that the church put in place, I always will hammer that if you follow the structures, all these things work well, because the church entrusts everybody at any point to be able to be up to duty. So you have girls fellowship, you have all the youth groups. When you go to girls fellowship meeting, one of the rudiments is that we take attendance. When you go to youth fellowship meeting, we take attendance. When you go to brigade, explorers, brigaders, whoever, junior boys, senior boys, officers, you all take attendance. So when we are looking for how many young people we already have young people who are responsible for their own numbers. So we just put these figures together and we know how many young people we are having. When you go to children's service, we also take the number. So it is not like the presentation is like the adults should know, which means that the adults should be at where the young people are, should be counting how many young people are seated here. Meanwhile, the church's structure is in such a way that the young people are supposed to be doing things at their own level, to feel free to learn at their own level. Whilst doing that, there are certain vital information they pick from their meeting, and what the church is looking for, they give. And it is part of grooming responsible adults. And if we follow those structures, it will help in growing the young people.
Just for your information, Dr. Eifa, please stand. Who's in charge of our statistics? Dr. Dumfe was, but Dr. Dumfe has moved on, and Brother Eifa is in charge. If you have any discussions, we can continue with him. But like Brother Sofado is saying, we have information. It may not be exact, but we do have the data. So if somebody has a question, he can see you later after the meeting.
All right. Thank you. A quick reaction from Elsie on, I think she wanted to say something, but after that we'll take our last two questions. Yes.
I think some questions were directed at Alfred, and I would try and answer. I think the church and even the young people have really tried to advise us and teach the young people the way to go when it comes to godly dating, when it comes to fornication, when it comes to lesbianism, homosexuality, let me put it that way. Because I know the young people's Bible classes, the joint Bible classes that we've been having, we discuss such things here, but one of the discussions that came up recently is that a lot of people don't like to attend because they feel people in high school are there and they are young workers, they don't want to be mingled with high schoolers. But that's not the concept. I think if all young people get to understand that we are all young people, whether he's in secondary school, you are working, you are an associate, a manager, you are still a young person. So it will be, and also if you belong to any of the fellowships, they tackle these things better in smaller groups. So these discussions on fornication, these discussions on how to handle yourself around the opposite sex, so you are not tempted to do certain things, they are better discussed, because the children in girls' fellowship, when they come the following week and you ask them, what did they talk about in Girls Fellowship? They're able to tell you everything that Auntie Abba said, Auntie Mary said, and other spokespersons that they invite to talk. So if you can let your children enroll in any of these organizations, and then encourage them to attend the young people's Bible classes, to really be helpful, because these topics are tackled there.
All right, so Uncle Branfo, we'll take a question from you, and then Krobia would be our last person. We are far behind time at this moment, so we should be wrapping up.
I think the discussion is on discipleship, is it? And how I want to share something. In the year 2006, I inquired how many people we have in the Methodist Church in 2006. And I was told that we have around 650,000 people in the Methodist Church. Since then, the mission, every year, making disciples, intensification of disciples, consolidation of gains, rendering more people, attracting this. At 2019, about 13 years old, the fact is that we are not even 1 million. And if I'm wrong, somebody should tell me. So from 2006 to 2019, with this thing modified year on year, we have not attained 1 million people. In 2006, if every member brought one person between 2006 and now, 13 years, if we gave ourselves that everybody should try within the 13 years to bring one person, we would have been 1.2 million, 1.3 million. Pardon?
Some would have died.
Oh yes, give or take. Some too would have been born. Okay. So clearly, there is something wrong with the whole approach. Where I have come from, we can talk all the English and so on to explain. The bottom line is that we are not making headway. Whatever strategies we have employed for the past 13 years, how nice, how modified, how revised, the result is that we have not made any significant headway. Churches that have developed in much later years can boast of membership of 1 million plus. What are they doing? Why are our youth leaving and going there? Why aren't we, as somebody said, using proper research to find out what is really going on? Because at the end of the day, as I said, 2006, we were 650. 13 years on, we are less than 1 million. Indeed, I even don't think we are 800,000.
We have passed 800. We have passed.
Okay, well done for passing 800,000. But it is really time, because I didn't want to, but I was speaking to somebody. Even in this church, to illustrate what I'm saying, I joined in about 2012. 7 years on, we haven't had a joint service here. Let's leave New Year, Christmas and those things. Ordinary Sunday, we haven't had a service here that I feel this church, joint service, that this church is full. No matter what time you come, you will find space to sit in. So we ourselves are probably a reflection of the larger church. We are not growing. The Methodist Church is not growing. Despite the strategies and all that has been put in place, the figures speak for themselves. And I think we should really sit down. I was hoping I would see more of the youth sitting here and letting us know exactly what has to be done to bring them back. Thank you.
The youth are not sitting here, but they are there and will make their input.
Please, Krobia, just for protocol's sake, please allow Mr. Butcher to put in a quick one on this, and then you be my very last person to either make a submission.
Mine is not a question.
Yes, please.
It's an addition to what my brother was saying. It's an addition to what my brother was saying. I was sitting down asking myself questions, and these are my answers. We want to grow, but I'm sorry to say, sometimes we are too much inward looking. You bring people of different dialects, and all that we do is our tongue is too sweet for us. We don't want to extend. That is bringing other people in. 2, we are talking about the youth being the backbone of the church and the future. You go to other churches, they use their youth very well. They engage them. The youth even feel like going to church every minute because he has something to do. We come here, you could see somebody doing something, even to walk is a problem, but he must do that thing. What about the youth? How are we growing them to do that? So when they come small and they go. We have 6 kids. Only one comes, 1 or 2. And when the new people, you are growing. But the others that goes to the charismatic church, they go almost every day. They also go to work, but they have things to do, so they must go to that church. If we don't change, like somebody was saying, in the year 2030, 2050 is too far, we'll have all old men coming to church for Methodist Church. And that is the problem. That is what the law says I should say. And I'm saying it without fear or favor.
Thank you.
Let me make a comment by George Whitefield, that there are some things we do on earth. There's one thing we can do on earth, but we will never do in heaven, and that is evangelism. Evangelism can't be done in heaven, on this side of the earth. That is where we should. Unfortunately, we are not up to the task of doing serious evangelism. And that is why our budget has changed, and we pray that our participation will change, our prayer life will change, everything will change. Because we started with double your membership, then we went to 5 in 95, then we went to 3 in 13, and so on, and it's like we are reversing, but still the message is coming, but we are not responding appropriately. So we have a task and a prayer task, action, and then the prayer. Thank you. There was some.
Yes, Prof would speak to us. Yes, and let's put our hands together for Prof. Like I mentioned on Sunday, if Prof is still youth, then we are babies. Yes.
No, let me stand. Church leaders and the youth, we seem to be separating youth and elders. we seem to be separating youth and elders. I think it's wrong. We are a community, and we must always think like a community. It's like a parent at home who is always distinguishing between himself and his children. You must think as family. But I put this aside, just a general comment. What I want to say is this, that the Methodist Church has not been faithful to its missions. Our Reverend Senior Brother, Pastor, has referred to attempts by the church to increase our membership. None worked. And we never bothered to find out why they didn't work. What I noticed, just in passing, as an ordinary member, 5 in 95, documents were prepared to help us to increase our number. It was a very good document, as far as I recall. It was betrayed by the clergy. I'm making a very serious charge. I remember at the time, we were a small group then, Emmanuel, and our brother Abisa was trying to get copies of the document so we can also participate. It took quite a time for him to get a copy, and he made photocopies for us to use. What I found was a certain lack of response from the clergy to the document. That's one point. The other thing was that you look at the structures that we use. I can't go through all of my reasons, but I'll just pick a few. One of them is a recent arrangement whereby a society gives away 60% of the money we get to the circuit, the diocese, the connection. These are not the places where we recruit members into the church, but that is where the bulk of our money is going. And we wonder that we are not increasing. It is the society that creates new churches and recruits people. So if you take the money away to the levels that do not add anything to our membership, we shouldn't be surprised that nothing is happening. We are making the clergy comfortable. I'm sorry, I thought that I have a problem with the clergy. In my time, if you saw a clergyman in the Methodist Church, you could see his shoes were old. I'm not saying I want you to look poor. No. But these were things we noticed. So when you saw a Methodist minister, he knows he has to put some fire into his congregation to get something out. If you have a priest today, and whether he works hard or not, he gets paid, are you going to get him to put out his best through his society? You know, where is the money to come from to do the evangelism. There was a time when it looked to me as if the clergy have given up evangelism. It is to be done by evangelists. The principal work that should be done by the clergy, they were putting on to people who were not clergy. Now they seem to be coming back. But you are surprised your numbers are not increasing because you don't give first place to evangelism. That's it. We plan evangelism from time to time. And if you look carefully, you will see that it is other groups in the church that take the leading part. I'm sorry I'm being hard on the priesthood.
No.
I've been very close to the priesthood all my life. My uncle, Reverend Gadiel Arakwa, who was a very close friend of my father throughout school and up to the time they died. And he always stayed with us in Accra when we were here, and when we went to Cape Coast, the same thing happened. I'm just using him as an example. I looked at the way he lived and the way he worked. The pattern of living of a Methodist minister today is very different. You know, I think of people like Reverend A.B.C. Dixon, our own Kwesi Dixon's father. And I looked at the way they lived. I looked at the way people like Reverend Stanhope, the way they lived. It's very different. You felt that these were people who didn't think too much about themselves, whether they had enough or they didn't have enough. It was a certain approach to life. I must confess, when my own elder brother became a Methodist minister, I wasn't happy at all. I said, "Oh, you're going to join those poor people?" Anyway, he did this. The point I'm trying to make is this, that when you take certain decisions, you have to remember the commitment that brought you into the church. And the church has for years made sure that the focus of our funding is towards the higher ranks of the church. Now, the Methodists to head the church. And so when you go there, it is not the people who create the clergy. It comes from above. We have no such claims to apostolic succession. So, therefore, the force that creates a Methodist church, we are people who have come together. And this is why we speak about the priesthood of all believers. We seem to forget that, because that is what we are. We were not directed from above. We came together to worship. And if we don't go back to consider some of the early truths that moved the Methodist Church and invigorate it, they're not going to get anywhere. So the first obvious thing to me is to restructure our funding. Because if you want more evangelism, the creation of more churches, more clinics, more schools for the Methodist Church, return the money to the societies.
Amazingly so. Amazingly so. Thank you very much. Always when we have Prof around, it's a bank and a wealth of history, heritage, and knowledge. Thank you so much. I would wish at this point, ladies and gentlemen, that we would put an end to the proceedings, and any reactions, I would cut them because of time. But then please, I'd ask Chairman to have his summary and closing remarks, please. Let's put our hands together for Chairman. Please remain seated, ladies and gentlemen.
I do not intend to be rude, but we need to make some corrections. The church developed or evolved with these percentages based on actual experiences. You know that I worked with the Ghana Prison Service for some time, and I remember giving some money, in fact paying some asofos, because they were where they would not raise enough funds. Asofos were in 3-4 months arrears in salaries, because by nature of where they were, they could not pay them. And so they did this. So Mami will bear me out. Today it's a better shoe because somebody gave it to me. In fact, I had half shoe, some 40-something years back. That was what I wore as a Osofo in the Methodist Church. I walked 16 miles, go from New Edubiase to Subirisu, near Akimoda, and I was at Danse, New Edubiase. So I know what Prof is saying. Happily, he's saying that there has been some move, but he wants the percentages reviewed. On record, I and Sofu Kojakuboham worked out hard to have the percentages reviewed. Originally, headquarters was taking 40%, society 40%, and then 10-10. Then through Accra Diocese, we led. We were at Freeman Center, led and signed document and sent it to headquarters. Unfortunately, Bishop Osabuti was then acting as presiding bishop and could not pursue it. But we continued as of Koja Kubuham until they reduced it from 40 to 35, because that paid the staff. The staff does not mean only Asofo. The staff, including the headquarters staff. That also paid the training of ministers. That also paid for taking to further studies. And percentages, well, MDF and so on, into some areas. Here we are, we do not see that they are paying some monies from MDF to some societies, but I know that it's being addressed. We have to be judicious in our use of money. What things we can cut out, what things, if we spend so much on refreshment, you certainly can't do evangelism. And since evangelism can only happen on earth, we have to be serious with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. It's been a passionate debate, but I would like to return to the topic, which is intensifying our teaching ministry towards disciple making. It's good that the adults had a lot to say, and I'm a little disappointed that more of the youth did not have a lot to say. If I go back to the first question that was asked, I felt that the question was talking more about employability, employment. And if you look at the economy and the country that we are in, where 75% are under 35, very soon it doesn't take a lot of calculation to work out that most of the people in the church, if we are able to retain them, will be the youth and not the adults. Change is difficult, but change has to happen. Change is difficult, but change has to happen. And unless we, the adults, must first begin to change in everything that we do so that we can have more people. Because if you don't change and you expect different results, according to Weinstein, that is the definition of insanity. And the last note and the last point I'd like to make is to thank all of you who made it a point to come here today, and to thank the organizers for the wonderful work that you've done, and to say to the panelists that I've learned a lot today. Thank you very much.
Shall we put our hands together for our panelists? Yes, the chairman himself, also very Reverend Apia Champion, Reverend Steve Addo, Uncle Eugene, Taylor Sampson, and his daughter Elsie. Taylor Sampson, please, you may take your seats. Shall we do it for them one more time? It has been amazing an experience that we've had together with them. If you stayed here with us, we're extremely excited. It is still Young People's Week here at Emmanuel Society, brought to you by Vision Spectra. And this has been the symposium on the theme, Intensifying Our Teaching Ministry Towards Disciple Making, the Young Person in Focus. At this point, we'll take our offering and we'll ask your talents to lead us. And after that, we'll have our announcements. SYO will help us, as well as the stewardess around will help us with the announcements. So shall we have our offering now?
My Jesus, someday I've got my mind made up and I won't turn back, 'cause I want to see my Jesus someday. I've got my mind made up and I won't turn back, 'cause I want to see my Jesus someday. I've got my mind made up. Made up my mind, go this way the rest of my life. I made up my mind, go this way.